Welcome to episode 35 of the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm your host, Hazard. This week I'm joined by Dream, Muspel, and Cotton. Cotton has changed her name once again, so she's out of order. Baros is out due to a scheduling conflict, and Shadow's out for some personal reasons. So, we were talking about, we are the Global Exclusive Podcast, but we would like to continue being inclusive to all of our hosts, but the freaking daylight savings time is making it really difficult to do so, and it's not going to get any better.
Honestly, what is the point of daylight savings?
Well, it'll get better in a few weeks once we're past the point that daylight savings is actually changing.
Will it though?
Yeah, we are moving in opposite directions.
It will never get better, only worse.
Yeah, we might have made a mistake with the global portion of this. So, well, this week we've got no one really interesting to talk about. We do have, let's see, there's some chick some people were excited about named Starlight Elena. There's also Lauren, who's an NVA. And then we've got Dark Visions this week. Dark Visions is mercifully 2 weeks long now instead of 1 week. So that's a huge improvement. I probably still won't do it, but it's a huge improvement. So
At least Hazard is consistent in that way.
Yeah, nothing will
do it on the last day.
Yeah, nothing will ever really get me that interested in DV. I don't think there's anything that could do it. So, all right, so let's talk.
What if they introduced CG Ramza as an exclusive reward from DV?
I was actually, that was leaving my mouth, I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, that might be the only thing that could motivate me. So I'm glad you said something. So that is possible. All right, let's get to the
CG Ramza and CG Delita dual unit.
All right, now you've lost me. All right, if we're good,
let's just move on.
Yeah, we can move on to Starlight Elena. Starlight Elena is the long promised favorite fan unit contest winner remake unit, and
you totally didn't deserve it.
No, not at all. We've already blown that contest to bits in a previous episode.
Where's CG Dwayne?
Yeah, we are missing CG Dwayne, who is he was due way before Elena too. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
I could be wrong. I don't think they ever promised him
People
that.
Misinterpreted it.
Yeah, they did a poll like, what unit do you want a 5-star version of? But they never said they were going to actually do it.
But what's the point of having a poll?
I know, that's kind of a dick move if they're just like...
It was probably just their Facebook community manager trying to come up with something because they were bored.
But it's like if you're
would take it.
It's like if your roommate or wife or someone texts you and says, "Hey, what do you want for dinner tonight?" and you tell them what you want, and then they get home and they didn't get anything for you. You're like, "What the hell?"
I mean, speaking of people not realizing that what they're being asked isn't what they think they're getting, let's talk about how Starlight Elena is exactly what Gumi promised, and yet not what people thought they were voting for, because people didn't pay attention to the vote.
Oh boy.
People were expecting a bulky damage dealer with support, like original Elena, and instead they got a hybrid damage dealer, which was honestly, I did not think she would be a hybrid until they announced her. I thought she was going to be a different role or something.
Why? I mean, the original one was hybrid, wasn't she? So wouldn't the new one be hybrid?
Yeah, but a lot of the times when we get variants, like the new unit is a different role than the old one. Like Kimono Ayaka is a damage dealer.
But Freya and Aurora Freya, they're both hybrids.
True, but I'm just saying with Elena, it wouldn't have surprised me if they had made her a different role. And honestly, I wish they had. Although, actually, after seeing Yoshi, I don't really have much faith in their ability to make her good as anything other than a damage dealer. So.
Yeah, I gotta say, the original Elena, probably one of the worst sprites in the game, in my opinion, and I've said this before. I was looking for, the one thing I was looking forward to with this new version of Elena is that they couldn't possibly have gotten the sprite any worse, and boy was I wrong. Holy crap. They've managed to somehow make the base version worse than the original version, like with the one leg, the one pant leg thing, and like the the hipster like emo haircut on the side. And then you look at the Brave Shift form. Oh my gosh. It's just a complete abomination. Oh my goodness. And people were excited about this unit. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it.
Look, there's one thing I have to add. You know how we always say eat pant as a meme here? Someone really ate Elena's pant.
It was probably Nexus.
Blame, true. Blame Nexus. That always works.
Oh, you already know Nexus pulled for her. He's such a sucker for her.
And then he summoned as well.
We should probably talk about her kit, though.
Take it, Dream. I wasn't even expecting that because Barros isn't here today.
Someone's got to compensate for it.
Turns out it was
Yeah,
Dream.
let's
Who
talk
would
about
thought?
how Elena goes both ways.
Yeah.
Oh god, no,
I'll let
wait,
you take care
no.
of that, Muspel.
So Elena is a dual-wield hybrid in her base form, and in her Brave Shift she can either go dual-wield or TDH. TDH is probably going to be better unless you have like really shitty gear or something, maybe. I don't know. She does damage.
Like she's fine. She does like what, as a pure chainer, like 20% more than the previous highest of Axter. So that's like, it's respectable.
Yeah,
It's what a new damage dealer kind of should be. Like, people were expecting her to be OP broken, but like, why?
Yeah, the main draw here is Dark Visions, because she's the first strong unit at NV that can take like imbues and physical killers and stuff. Like Yoshi can do it, but he's not as good at it as Elena is. Although even Elena is still not that great.
Like right now, she is very good for DV magic stages.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna last that long though.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're not expecting much in the way of mages for like a month or two at least, and yeah, the few that are coming are like not that strong and element locked, so she'll have some use for like at least a couple months, I'd say.
I mean, Dracu Laswell had some hybrid abilities. I think he might get an NVA for Halloween.
Oh god, no.
Maybe. We don't know what they'll do with global exclusives and time limited NVAs in general.
NBA Chow when?
Is this where we get to make a joke about how Dracu Laswell is gonna suck?
Oh, obviously.
Oh god, I can imagine how Barros would take that joke.
That's why we have to make it when he's not here.
I mean, but talking about Dark Visions, Elena does have one thing going for her. She is perfect. She's made basically for people to steal stuff from her using Zon, because she has that one in her Brave Shift form. She has that one use per battle. What is it? Magnus ability, which gives her a 200% demon and human killer buff, and also buffs her attack and magic by 300%. So I guess she's really good on demon and human stages.
Yeah, the problem I have with that is that it takes a bunch of setup, because she can't Brave Shift until turn 2, which I think is a first for NV units, or NV base units, that she can't Brave Shift on turn 1. So on turn 1, you're typically setting up in the base form. Then on turn 2 in DV, you probably want her to use her LB to get the mod boost. Turn 3, you use the killer buff, and then you share it. And then you burst on turn 4. Like, you can skip the killer thing, or you can skip the LB. Either one is going to cost you damage. And even without one of those, she's still strong. It's just, you either have to pick and choose, or you have to deal with whatever it is the boss does on turn 3, which is usually something kind of annoying.
So I think it was Muspel or Dream that mentioned that Elena was kind of disappointing to people, or that it wasn't what they were expecting. And it's interesting. I saw a post on Reddit this week that said Starlight Elena, her base numbers are actually worse than regular Elena. For
Her
What?
her defense and spirit are.
yeah, her bulkiness is definitely nowhere close to original Elena's. But I don't know. She has
To
like
be
7k
fair,
health at
To be fair,
120.
people are comparing enhanced Elena to Starlight Elena. And Elena got extra bulk with her enhancements, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she did.
Mm.
She was always like stupidly bulky as well. Like a full-on damage dealer shouldn't have like over 100% defense and spirit and HP with like just no gearing for it. It's kind of dumb.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying Starlight Elena is bulky or that regular Elena wasn't.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that I think people were thinking about this as something that is like fundamental to Elena as a concept, and I don't really think that's true.
And it's also interesting how Elena kind of started this every global exclusive unit has to be bulky theme for a little bit, and I feel like they've moved away from that in the last several months.
Esther kind of did it first with her physical bolt.
I guess that's true. Yeah, it was Esther, Elena.
Xeno, Xeno wasn't innately bulky, but he had a lot of room for it in his gearing.
And then obviously you had Shenwu, or what's her name? Yeah, Shenwu. Xuanwu. Redacted. And then also Aurora Faravia's enhancements kind of made her a lot bulkier too. So there's a little trend.
I guess people were expecting global exclusive units to be bulky because of the trend where our previous global exclusive units have been bulky.
Yeah, it's interesting now that we've gotten the first two global exclusive NVs. I feel like people were disappointed or people were a little bit let down. I mean, they're fine. Elena's fine if you like pink-haired, one pant-legged, overrated persons, but her damage is good. So she's perfectly serviceable damage dealer. Should be good for DV. But it's interesting that people thought, I guess there people had high expectations for her for some reason. I think just because of Gumi's past global exclusive units have usually had something up their sleeve or something fun or new and exciting.
That's not really true. Like, people remember the
It
ones
is.
that were good. They forget about the ones that were forgettable or terrible or whatever. Sorry, Dream, you had something to say?
I mean, the FFBE community and unrealistic expectations. Name a more iconic duo.
But yeah, like for every Esther or Sylvie or Xeno, there was a Chin or Dracu Laswell or Tiana or Kaito, Morgana. Trying to think of who else there was. Baihu. A lot of units that just didn't really do anything relevant or good.
But there was something, as I mentioned, I didn't say that they were amazing. I said they were like different. They had something up their sleeve that was like unique. Even units like Baihu and Kaito and Morgana had that kind of little flair to them. Even if it wasn't executed really well, they still had that. And it just seems like
Kaito
Yoshi. Sorry,
really did anything different.
Just really wanted to finish my sentence.
Muspel
doesn't know how to let people finish.
It sounded like you were moving on to another point, and I wanted to catch it before we moved on. But Kaito was the only one of those units that really did anything different. Like, Morgana was just a less bad version of Silka. Tiana was not unique in any way. Chin was a slightly updated version of Ramza, which was really bad because Ramza was like a year and a half old at that point. And just a lot of stuff in those units' kits that made no sense and wasn't new. It was just bad. Like, I'm not saying
it's still often using just less common mechanics, even if they're not brand new. But yeah,
well, my point here was that I think Yoshi and Elena have been kind of underwhelming in that sense that there's nothing really that unique or special about them that would make you want to pull, other than nostalgia for Oran or the original Elena, right? And that's basically the reasons that people pulled, because they're not pulling because she's some amazing unit. I mean, they're both fine, but I do feel like there was a second letdown this week for people who are big Elena fans and hoping for something special.
We should have voted for Chow, because I think global exclusive tanks are the one role that Gumi has always done at least a reasonably good job at. Like, they aren't all top tier, but they're all good. Or at least they were at the time that they came out.
Just trying to think of some forgotten tank that was just terrible.
The worst one relative to when they came out was, like, if you count Demon Rain's original release, which I wouldn't because he was, like, tanks didn't really exist back then I guess you could say him. But aside from that, the worst two are Lilith and Demon Rain, and they were both, and Demon Rain 7-star, and they were both fine when they came out.
Yeah, even like Beryl had some. He was functional enough, and he had some interesting uses.
Beryl was janky, but he was at least interesting.
Right.
Like he had the good breaks.
TBH. The real correct choices for voting were Ling and Yan, because they've never even got a chance at a 5-star.
Thank you. Yes, those are the only two correct things to vote for.
To be fair, Ling probably would have been just another one of the 18 global exclusive breaker buffers we've gotten by now. Fu and Chin, and then Ling would have probably been the same thing.
I don't know if she would have gone into the direction of buffs. She could have been like a breaker healer.
I mean, she has buffs right now.
Interesting.
But it's the principal Muspel. The principal.
She has general mitigation with her enhancements. It's just people forgot about it because she was already irrelevant by the time she got them.
I mean, what happened to new versions of the same unit often have a different role?
I think because those didn't have rainbow versions, they would be more likely to stick into the same role.
Yeah, that's fair. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent.
Do we want to move on to Lauren?
Did anyone pull Elena? Did anyone pull for Elena?
Yes, I burned
Does
some
using
tickets
11 tickets count?
All right, one at a time, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, Dad.
Cotton?
I mean, does using 11 tickets count?
Yeah. I actually used Lapis. I did the 3 4,500 pulls and the free pull because I really wanted Lauren because she's a really good breaker.
I did the exact same.
And I did not get Lauren. Or any NV, which shows you that actually pulling on banners is a trap. You can just get NVs for free, and it's a much better system. But
can you?
Well, I got 2 more Jakes. No, actually, I got the Bird Jake, the Phoenix Jake.
Oh.
I got 1 Phoenix Jake and 2 more nameless Gunner Jakes, which I think I'm like at.
Are you lead?
12 now of that idiot.
Gee.
11. I'm at 11.
I used like 60 regular tickets, and I got Aerith and Elena.
NVs?
NVs, yeah.
Oh, I didn't tell you guys. I pulled. So after the Axstar episode, I pulled an Axstar NV with a ticket on stream with Dream and Cotton. And then after the Yoshi banner, after the Yoshi banner came out, I pulled back-to-back NVs. I pulled my 3rd Rain and my 1st Yoshi, trying to get. I just did the daily pull for the first time in forever, trying to get a 2nd Itachi, and didn't work. So
why?
Should I just quit now?
Because I wanted her STMR. I haven't done them in like 2.5 years.
Is fine.
Yeah. Why did you fall off the wagon? You're not supposed to do them. Don't be Barrows.
No, the 250 daily is fine in the early NV era. It's the 500 pulls that are Barrows level.
I mean, even the 250 pulls are not great because of like the stuff we're getting as bonuses for 4.5 or 5k pulls.
I don't know. It's basically like a 10% rainbow ticket, so which are terrible, by the way. But this feels better. Also, I have no actual evidence to back this up, but I feel like gold tickets, like 4-star guaranteed tickets, are absolute garbage, and they're gold every single time. They never ever change. But for some reason, my 3-star tickets are way, way better. They have such a much better chance of actually turning into something good.
Hazard, are you complaining about your ND luck?
No, I'm complaining about 4-star tickets specifically, EX and regular.
His rainbow luck.
Yeah, the rainbow luck is terrible on those things. They suck.
I mean, do you
every
care
time.
if your rainbow luck is terrible if you're getting so many NVs?
I don't care about NVs.
Rainbows are still
Yeah.
useful for the STMRs.
I want the STMRs.
But at least you have good luck in something.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm happy to have NVs. They're going to be super useful for all of that really great content that we're never getting. Like, we don't even have anything to talk about this week as far as new content. It's just another session of
Have we
DB.
talked about Lauren?
No, we can talk about Lauren because Lauren's actually
we'll get there.
Lauren's actually really cool. So let's talk about it. Dream, you want to talk about Lauren's kit?
Yeah. I will in a sec. I was briefly going to say I also did like the 3 4.5Ks on the banner to try get another copy or two of her. I got one extra copy and then proceeded to shard it instead of making the STMR with it, so I had to use the prism anyway.
Dream,
But
why?
I honestly bought the bundle, got EX1, and the reason why I did that is because she's actually really good, and as well as being cool, because she does a lot of damage as just like an SR chainer, because with her Twin Blade Dance in Brave Shift, you can stack a bunch of mod boosts on it. That with her Brave Shift Limit and Blade of Devotion from her base form to get that up to 183 per cast, and you can triple cast that, so that can do a lot of damage as a burst, especially if you can whale her out with a TDH build, because for some reason she doesn't have the 6x chain cap. But then, while doing all this damage, she can also very effectively compress in your breaks and keep up like 85% AoE full breaks very easily, or has an on-demand like 80% full break that she can also like self-cap with because it's got a good mod. Plus there's a perfect dispel for 2 uses on her Grandis, so she's just really nice.
So, Dream, do you say you were baited by your own mats? Were you baited to pull her by your own mats?
I don't know.
So
I don't hear a denial.
I said this on Discord, but I think Lauren is simultaneously maybe the best unit in the game and absolutely not worth pulling for, because, well, unless you already have like four copies of her at least, I would say, because you need 5 copies of her to get her to NVA, and she only has a 1.5% pull chance, so it's gonna be, I calculated it, something like 96,000 lapis on average to get her to NVA from scratch, or 116k to get her to EX +1.
Is that including the bundle though?
Yes, that is including the bundle.
Yeah, because 3k for 50 shards for an MVA in something like this is actually like pretty good value.
Yeah, that's with buying the bundle. If you don't buy the bundle, it's even worse.
Yeah, I'm debating whether or not I want to just STMR Moogle her because I've got 3 originally. Her STMR is awful, but but it would be nice to just be able to EX1 her and have a good breaker, because I don't really have a good breaker. I think my best one's still Kryla. No, I guess I have Vanille. She's okay, but Lauren's just so much better.
Do it.
Lauren's just really good. So, and she looks cool. All right, like this is how you do Brave Shifts, Gumi. This is how you do Brave Shifts. It's beautiful. Have you guys seen this Brave Shift?
I mean, there is a context as to why she has a very good Brave Shift, a completely different design for an NVA unit. Because in Japan, Lauren is a paid unit. You can only get her from buying from X points, so from actually spending cash on the game.
I don't really buy the theory of that being why she's better or more unique.
I do 100%.
Yeah, got to give people who spend on the game an incentive to spend, I guess.
just
I feel like anyone who's actually spent for like a bunch of copies of Lauren would have already had them though in JP rather than seeing the Brave Shift making them spend more.
yeah, I
Or
tend to
as a
agree with
reward
Dream.
to people for spending.
I tend to agree with Dream here. I don't think it's based on that, but it is a great Brave Shift sprite. She looks really cool, and her base sprite, obviously, the freaking twin blades, the wind one and the thunder one. It's just really cool. It's a great unit.
One thing I do want to point out is that right now a lot of what makes her so good is the fact that she compresses really good breaks and what is for now really good damage. But like any damage dealer, she's going to get power crept, and in a couple months, she's mostly just going to be a dedicated breaker with okay support chains. She's going to be kind of like Vaughn was at the end of the 7-star meta when his damage was fine, but you didn't really think about it that much. So
I feel like it's maybe a bit more significant than that. She'll still be like a noticeable contribution in a few months or a couple months.
So was Vaughn. He
like,
did what, like 15 or 20k billion damage per turn?
Yeah. Maybe the difference with Vaughn is like his is finishing, so you're still like you've got a pair of chainers anyway and are just throwing him in, but potentially you could have like Lauren actually being a chain partner.
That's true.
For someone stronger, and then like have a really strong finisher on top of that. Like, I don't know, Terra.
I should also point out though that the like breaker damage dealer combination thing, we're gonna see this a few more times. Riku does it if we get the Kingdom Hearts collab. I think Fid is actually okay at it too.
Ooh.
Fid's more of a healer breaker. Her damage isn't really good. Like, her Brave Shift form is damage based, but I don't think it's really worth that using, and she's just better as breaks plus
Well,
support.
if those are the two competitions, let me say hard pass on both, because one's a freaking bubble sprite. It's just like a literal bubble, and it's limited, and it's from Kingdom Hearts, so it's like triple trifecta of suck. And then the second one is a literal fan service unit that I refuse to pull for, and will continue to refuse to pull for. So Lauren, it is.
Then there's also, I think Locke does okay damage, right? NV Locke?
Not sure,
Maybe I haven't really
actually.
looked at his damage.
I would imagine he does, but that's just me guessing. I haven't
He seemed
either.
kind of underwhelming to me.
Okay, I
He
actually
could
will
have
say,
been Envy Sellers.
but I will say Adventure Locke has one of the best sprites in the game, and I really like what they did with NV Locke that came out in JP. Between the base and Brave Shift form, the sprite's really well done, I think, as well. So, but yes, justice for Sellas. What's going on here?
I don't really like Locke's Brave Shift sprite. I think it's too sort of bright.
Well, it's very what do you call it? It's very true to the original, like the original art of the game.
I know that there were some other units that had like the breaker damage dealer thing going on. I'm trying to think who else there was.
I think Envy Onion might have a full
Oh,
break.
Assassin Shadow, he was one of them. Although I'm not sure how his damage
I don't
is.
think he really does good damage. He's more of like an alternative to Varn with like breaks plus evade, provoke plus mirage type thing, along with like I think Katana and Peril.
But his damage can only be used at a certain amount of times of fight. So it's like all his damaging skills in his Brave Shift form are a Grandis, I think, which means you only can use them twice, and then he's out.
Yeah, that's his gimmick, but I don't think you really use them anyway.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it seems like dedicated breaker is not really a role anymore in JP, and I'm guessing that's gonna come over to GL too. It seems like they're just making it so that all your breakers also fill another role, which is, I don't really know how I feel about that, but
I guess it's because they're sort of running out of like ways to creep it. Like,
yeah.
They don't really want to do high break percent, like more break percent very much, because it's roughly hitting the limit. I mean, I think Locke has 90% attack and magic, but
there isn't really a limit. They can just
beyond 90% full break.
They can just crank up boss passives.
But I think the problem is like some content still exists that does not have passives, and they can't, like, they're not going to retroactively add it.
Yeah, but
And like, I mean, sure, does it matter if you can reduce their stats to like 1 and do near infinite damage?
it's not like those trials
Maybe
are
not.
hard anymore, anyways. Like,
No, but I don't know. It would feel weird to me, but maybe it's fine. But I think they could expand like dedicated breaker with these like break gauge skills, and also now the weapon imperils. Like that could very much be a breaker thing, but I don't know if they will actually do that because it sounds smart.
Man, just got the dream seal of approval right there.
Anyway, I think we've talked quite a bit about units that we should be more hyped about, but we are not. So should we move on
I
to
think we're kind of just tired this week.
yeah? Should we just move on to Dark Visions and talk about how everyone's going to get a perfect score this round?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, Dark Visions has been extended to 2 weeks, although they did do that. They did revert to that weird release schedule where the last one releases like on Monday or something during the first week. So they still drag it out a little bit for no reason, but it is definitely an improvement, I think, to have it be 2 weeks, because it gives those of us who can't get to it in a single weekend or whatever and work during the week, like have lives and families and things to do with our lives. It gives us time to hopefully be able to complete it all and even be able to go back and try and improve our scores. Not that I'm going to be doing anything of the sort, but
that sounds like far too much.
It is too much effort. And I think the main problem with DV still is the fact that the way the game is designed, chaining and the importance of chaining, spark chaining or chaining very well, is really just terribly executed and gives clear advantages to people who aren't using their phones. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So that's the biggest time sucker for me in DV, is resetting my phone 1,000 times per battle so I can get perfect chains. And I've used every program.
An auto clicker.
I don't have a clicker. That doesn't exist.
They just need to take the
iOS?
chain count score thing and just lower it so that you only need like a 40 hit chain or something.
Yes, or just remove it completely, because it's completely nonsensical. Like, you could still get a great score and not perfect chain, but it's that stupid 100 count requirement.
The thing is, if they remove it completely, that'll involve adding a new one, and I don't relish the thought of that.
Yeah, they would add a new score based on depleting a new break gauge they would add to every single boss or something like
gosh. Please don't listen to this.
Hazard, be careful what you ask for.
Oh no, I will not be here.
For me, the biggest issue...
Sorry.
For me, the biggest issue is really just the 10 times as much time spent gearing as actually battling.
Which is why I think...
Even if it's just like killer changing.
Which is why I think that... Okay, you know how we got Boss Rush a few... What was it, maybe a month or two ago?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone loved it. Like, absolutely everybody loved it. Guess what we're never getting again? We're never getting Boss Rush again. And that's what we should be getting instead of DV.
I will say, this month's DV seems a lot better than the previous ones, because not only do we have the same elements for two areas in a row, or for 2 bosses in a row, they also have the same race. So you don't really have to change your gear at all, aside from like maybe swapping your tank to a different resist or switching to dodge or something. But I used almost the exact same setup for 2 bosses in a row on all of these stages.
Yeah, it sort of pseudo reduces the number of fights in a way. So yeah, it's slowly getting better, but it's still kind of a pain.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think there's anything they could do to satisfy me on this one. So like, don't even... I mean, continue to try, sure, but I won't be satisfied. I hate DV so much.
Hazard is a needy partner.
He is, isn't he? He's one tough customer.
Yeah, I really like Boss Rush. I don't mind just mindless grind. Oh, speaking of mindless grind, they have now increased the EP that you need on the MK events or whatever you want to call this Elena event to
Element.
to 100K.
That's not where I thought you were going with that.
Really?
When you mentioned mindless grind, I thought you were going to talk about this insignia bosses and how their break gauges are fucking insane.
Yeah, but just ignore them. And also, like, you don't even you could, like, if there's multiple bosses for the same insignia type, just farm whichever you have an easier setup for.
Yeah, I will say I only had to do the actual battle once each to get the missions, and I had enough to enhance all of Yoshi's skills. And because we've been getting those insignias from other places like the Daily Coin Shop.
Yeah.
And
yeah, the global exclusive insignias have actually been very
so that does help
helpful.
kind of reduce the insanity of those break gauges.
I haven't been buying them from the Daily Coin Shop just because I'm still buying like the tickets and stuff because I believe in RNG even though I shouldn't. But yeah, they're giving us
I
a
got
lot
10
of
blues
from other stuff.
Muspel struggles to find justification.
Local man challenges number game, loses more at 11.
But yeah, back on the topic of a Dark Vision, it seems like this month's event, like there's a lot of people. We haven't gotten the last stage yet, but Sinzar says it'll be really easy to cap. So we're probably going to see a tie for first place among a whole lot of people, which means like a bunch of people are going to get the top prize, which will be interesting.
Congratulations to you guys. Go get girlfriends. I actually have a few friends that are pretty much in that category, so I apologize to you. No hard feelings. But get a life, losers.
Hey, just watch a Hazard gets kicked out of GD3.
Oh.
Haz is just like repeatedly like stabbing and then putting a bandage over it and then stabbing again.
I've never even been invited to GD3. They don't want me there.
You're not missing anything. It's basically them just complaining about the help channel all day long. That's basically the entire purpose of that server, is to complain about help.
Why are you saying I wouldn't want to be there?
You enjoy being in help?
Nobody does.
No. I feel like I have to be in help because otherwise people give terrible advice.
Yes, Muspel, well-known advice giver. So,
no one has any problems with Muspel's advice.
Or Muspel's math.
To be honest, it's mostly my math these days. But
I mean, it's
all
good
the
to let
credit, that's the
Muspel be the
important
man, be the face, you know. So if you do anything wrong, people blame Muspel, and you go away scot-free.
No. If anything goes wrong, they ask me, and then I tell them to blame Dream. And by that point, they've already worn out all their outrage, so nobody gets yelled at.
Except for Muspel.
That's what you think.
Well, okay. Nobody gets yelled at that I have to worry about.
Nobody that you care about gets yelled at.
You're not worried about Dream being yelled at?
What are they going to do? Go to New Zealand?
Yeah, you have to fight 1,000 sheep. I wonder if you click on the sheep, if you poke a sheep 25 times in New Zealand, do they explode?
If you click,
What?
I am so confused right
All right,
now.
so yeah, in Warcraft 3, if you clicked on a sheep or any sort of critter, a certain number of times it would explode on the screen. So I'm wondering if you poked a sheep a certain number of times, would it explode? I mean, I guess it depends on how hard you poke the sheep, but I guess it wouldn't explode either.
Poke it with
You should go to New Zealand and test that yourself. Just find like the largest animal you can and start poking it and see what happens. It'll go well.
You guys do realize animals exist in other countries as well, right?
Yeah, but they're not as dangerous here.
Like I know we haven't been outside in a while because of COVID, but like animals do still exist in other parts of the world.
Wait, are animals dangerous in New Zealand? Isn't it just sheep and more sheep?
New Zealand is really safe.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not
it's
Australia
probably-
with all those stuff.
It's not Australia.
It's probably
yeah.
still more dangerous than California. Like, what do we have here? We have squirrels, rabbits.
Hey, I have a lot of black widow spiders that are around my house, so
I guess we have sharks, if you count those.
yeah, we
I
do
mean,
have sharks.
squirrels may have rabies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're Florida, where they have alligators and stuff.
Yeah, but Australia literally tries to kill
Do you
you.
have any like snakes?
Like Australia is the entire country tries to kill you. Every animal in that country, insect, beast, whatever, like everything is designed to kill you. Like, have you seen the size of the spiders in Australia?
Mm-hmm.
Even cotton.
It's funny. Okay, so we all know how Australia was settled originally, or like the joke is partially a joke that like basically the UK would send all their criminals to Australia. But how did New Zealand get settled?
I don't know. They just kind of like there was island tribal people here, and then some white dudes arrived while exploring.
So
basically the
and they were
same
just like,
as
"Hi."
America.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, probably. Probably pretty similar. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is the amount of content that's this week.
Okay, I actually do have an on-topic question for you guys, which is there's been a lot of complaints this week on Reddit. I could say that for basically every week since the game's inception, but particularly this week, there's been some poignant points made about basically how Gumi's run out of ideas and a lot of the stuff that has been a long-standing problem has still not been fixed, like the arena bug, for example. You guys have never fixed that. Still, you get logged out every freaking week and logged out of your account and all your settings reset. It's really freaking annoying. So I was wondering, do you guys think Gumi's run out of ideas? And if not, what have you seen to support that? Or if you do think it, what have you seen to support that?
I mean, I would argue that a lot of the issues that we are facing right now have come straight from the Japan version of the game, from Alim. Like with all the chainer power creeps when it comes to envy, is most of that is copy pasted from what Alim did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely problems with the game. I'm not sure. Some of them are beyond Gumi's ability to fix, unless they can't just stop releasing JP content.
They can't adjust the power level of JP content, because if they make the units weaker, people will complain that they get nerfed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're basically at the mercy of Alim's schedule, right? They have to follow their power creep at minimum, if not make it worse, right? But I think,
I mean, they can rearrange things a bit, but people still get pissy about any sort of perceived delays as well.
yeah, I think some of the arguments I've seen for the idea that Gumi's, and not just, and when I say Gumi, I just mean the game creators and managers that have kind of run out of ideas. Is, we've already talked about like the nth versions of all these different units and reskin bosses for now the third time within Tangier. We're now on the third version of Tangier. And, DV is not really new content. It's just they basically randomly shuffle races and, skills. And I feel like it's just kind of randomly created bosses every month that they just design.
I kind of like the idea of the Scorn and Extreme bosses, because I feel like a lot of these bosses, the first time they came out, the ideas were a little half-baked, and with the Scorns and then with the Extremes, we get to see them kind of iterate on it and try to get the boss to be more like how they envisioned it in the first place. And to be clear, they don't always nail the landing. Sometimes we get a boss where it still doesn't really matter what you do, but I feel like let's take Ion for example. If you look at the original Ion's AI, there was stuff in there that implied that you were supposed to kill the arms and they would come back weaker, but that I don't think they ever got that to work right, or they just scrapped the idea completely. But in Scorn of Igon, they actually implemented that, and like the right way to do the fight is you kill the arms, and each time they come back, they're different, and you keep going through that, and then you fight the body. and it's a lot closer to what I think the original idea for the fight was.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they're retreading some of these things, at least the boss fights. I think the units can get old, right? But it's more the fact that they're doing that in lieu of actually creating new content. Like people have argued that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but because we do have like the Chamber of Vengeance, for example, as kind of a new, a thing that's constantly being released every couple of months. But it does feel like there's some stagnation there in the creative department.
I mean, talking about new content, one thing I do wonder is how much leeway Gummy, as in the global side, has in developing new content. Because I would imagine that their main responsibility is to localize the Japanese version of the game for the global audience. So how much new content are they actually allowed to develop, or how much manpower do they have in developing new content if most of the efforts are directed towards localizing?
Maybe I'm misremembering here, but didn't they say at one point that they had another global exclusive trial in the pipeline and it got canceled because Square Enix didn't sign off on it? This was a long time ago. This was like not that old. This was like maybe a few months after Rumble Malboro.
I would imagine that being impossible. That could very well be possible.
And if so, maybe that was what Torturous Trio was originally supposed to be, just the 3 global exclusive trials as a boss rush.
I would say, like, content-wise, there's certainly, like, potential gaps and stuff, and, like, especially old things that could, like, have kind of died and could be revisited, like Esper's are pretty dead at this point, but that could easily be revisited. But I think for unit-wise, I was just going to comment on the fact that one of sort of the dumbest things I've seen people saying is, like, Alum introducing a bunch of new mechanics and people saying, oh, using that as evidence of, oh, they've run out of ideas for units. And, like, isn't introducing new mechanics the exact opposite of that?
Yeah, I mean,
so sometimes
there are
I don't
units
understand people.
where you look at them and you're like, yeah, they're out of ideas, but it's the boring units that don't have anything in their kit that's new.
Not every unit can be something new and interesting. That's fine, and like more variety and options for existing things is fine to exist too.
When we first reviewed NV as it was coming out, I think we kind of panned the Brave Awakening, the Brave Ability Awakening stuff, but the other stuff was pretty good. And like Dream mentioned, they are coming up with new mechanics and new things within kits that I find interesting, or there's some innovation there. I think it's just the units themselves that have been a little repetitive. Now they are doing some good things, like with Lauren, for example, this week, making an old unit, even though it's still Lauren, making it seem new and fresh by having that Brave Shift form, right? By having that new sprite, which I think is pretty interesting. So that I think that's a good argument against that theory, against that hypothesis.
I mean, all of the NBA units have new sprites in their Brave Shifts. It's just sometimes they're not that different.
Yeah, a lot of the NVAs are just like pose changes, but there are a few that are good. Like,
to be fair,
stuff like Blossom Sage Sakura transforming into Delta Sakura, like that's good.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot.
For a lot of units, I feel like there's not a lot they could do to change them into another unit that makes sense in lore. Like, for some of them, it's obvious. Like, Rain or Axstar, you know who they're going to change into. But for, like, Pyroglacial Lastwell, what are you going to do with him?
Make him equip Crimson Saber instead of Purple Lightning. That was the very obvious one to do, and they didn't.
I mean, he's using both.
He's not, though. In both his sprites, he's only holding Purple Lightning and just has Crimson Saber, like, on his back. The only time he uses it is in, like, the first half of his CG limit burst in his base form.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity.
And it's a waste.
Missed opportunity. I don't know, like anyway. the rain to Kyo and the Axstar to Xeno thing is kind of boring. Like, I get you kind of have to, but I don't know. That's where I get kind of like, all right, do we really want more of the same kind of stuff?
I mean, or like for source material ones, there's like stuff like Terra going trance and stuff, and that's
Yeah, but like
good.
Red 13, what are you gonna do?
It's predictable sometimes, but it is appropriate for those ones, and it is cool, like, to actually have those two different forms. When it's just like a pose change, it feels a bit pointless.
I guess like for Brave Shift really makes more sense if the unit has like a transform, for example, like maybe the Final Fantasy 9 cast or like the Envy Terra who actually Brave Shift into her Esper form.
I feel like the problem is that they made us that Brave Shift is this thing that's just, it's an Envy unit thing. Every Envy unit gets a Brave Shift, even if it doesn't make sense for them. I would rather, like, we see a lot of these units where they have a Brave Shift and the Brave Shift isn't really different in any meaningful way, they're just splitting their kit apart. I wish that they would save the Brave Shifts for the units where it did something relevant. And then just say not every unit has to have one.
I think in anything similar to like the way it's currently implemented, it would feel pretty weird for it to not be universal. I mean, maybe if it was like just for Envy bases or something, then sure, but
I mean, even with Envy bases, like Envy Cloud having two sprites is cool, but he doesn't, like, there's nothing interesting there with his Brave Shift. They just split his kit in half.
Yeah. I think it is kind of better to have the consistency just mechanically, in my opinion. Even if it does feel a bit token sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think I can go the other way at this point with it. I'll say that. Like, I think
I'm not saying they should change it
that.
now. I'm saying, in hindsight, I think that's what they should have done, is make it so that Brave Shift is something that only some units have, and only when it makes sense.
Well, maybe Merc Ramza will get an NV Brave Shift to Chapter 4 Ramza. And everyone will be happy. And this will be 2023.
Keep dreaming, Hazard. Keep dreaming.
Oh, I dream all the time.
Also, one thing that I found out that recently that's kind of sad that I didn't realize before is that CG limit bursts only play on the base form of the units, like their Brave Shift ones won't play their CGs.
Yeah.
And for some of them, that's pretty sad.
I think it's because, like, the Envy or the Brave Shift limit burst might have a different number of hits than it looks like there is in the CG. Or
different animation in general.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still.
Well, we all sound really excited about the future of this game, so that's nice.
JP.
Very excited to do DV at some point.
Yay.
I mean, I'm actually being serious this DV because it's the first and probably the only DV that I can actually get a perfect score on everything.
Really?
I feel like I should try because of that as well. But I don't know if I will.
I'd guarantee I can't and won't, so. Who's with me? There are dozens of us. Dozens! People who don't care.
Crickets. Just crickets.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. We only had one bad joke from Dream. So I think that's...
You know what we could actually do? We could ask Barrows to record some and then we could slice it in.
No.
That makes it sound more like a proper episode, right?
That would be
I'm good. I'm going to go. This is the best episode we've ever had.
I don't think we need to try to fit Barrows into places where he doesn't fit.
Aww.
He does enough of that by himself.
Gosh. Oh boy. All right, see you guys next week.